I've created 2 sample website folders for this lesson. I want you to start with the first one, using Manage Sites to set up your site. Let's call this Zuma Beach. And you'll find this in your project files in Part 2 in Lesson 3. It's actually called Seabirds, but as we get in there, you'll see it's all about Zuma Beach. And I'm just doing a quick setup, not even worrying about the images folder at this point. We're going to do 2 different things in this lesson. We're going to take an existing file that we created and save it as a template and use Dreamweaver's dynamic web templates to recreate more pages from that file. That's what we'll do in the second part of this lesson. But in the first part of this lesson, I want to show you how to use some of Dreamweaver's pre-designed pages, which you may think of as templates, but Dreamweaver actually tends to call samples or layouts. So let's start by looking at some of Dreamweaver's layouts. When you choose File New, you have a number of options. You can create new templates. You can create pages from existing templates. You can create pages from sample files, these starter files, as Dreamweaver calls them. You might think of as templates. They're pre-designed pages. We'll explore the CSS layouts that Dreamweaver now includes when you choose Blank Page, HTML, and you see this long list of options here. You'll find many different layouts in this section, and if you click on any one of them, you'll get kind of a preview of what it looks like. So you can see this one has a header and a footer, as well as a right sidebar and a main area. And if I choose to create this one, and I'm going to resize the window here just so that I can enlarge and reduce it. And you can see as I'm going back and forth here, the width of the container, and if I open up the CSS panel, you'll see this. Let's close our Files panel. There's a container in each of these designs. And in the fixed designs, that container is set to a fixed width, and it won't change even if the width of the browser window changes. In contrast, if I choose New, and I choose one of the liquid layouts like this one, now I get a design that will adjust based on the width of the browser window. So watch this. If my browser window was very narrow, then that div would be very narrow. And if my browser window was very wide, the div would widen. That flexibility is achieved by setting the container to a percentage width instead of to a fixed pixel width. So with tables and with divs, you have the option of setting the width to a percentage of the page, meaning this container div will always take up 80% of whatever browser window it's displayed in. Whether that browser window is really small or it's on a giant monitor and it's huge, it will always fill 80% of the screen. You can also set that to 100%, so it goes from side to side, or to 50%. You can change that percentage. But the idea is that liquid designs adjust based on the width of the browser. That can be a great strategy on the web for using the browser window, but it can also be problematic because if your design's not created in a way that it still looks good when it adjusts, it can lead to very strange results. Among these layouts, you'll also find one called Elastic. So let's choose one of the Elastic layouts. Let's choose one with a sidebar so you can really see what's going on. It may be hard to see what's different about Elastic designs at first, because if I just start to move this back and forth, it looks just like the fixed layout that we saw a moment ago. But if you notice here on the right, this sidebar, the way the text is set up, and we select the CSS sidebar to see what the styling is, you'll notice that the width of this one is set to 12 EM. Remember, EMs are a measurement based on the letter M in whatever font is being used to display the text. Although this is one of the more complex things to grasp in CSS, I want you to think about this for a moment. What the designer was trying to achieve when this layout was created was a sidebar that would adjust in size based on the size of the text. With a liquid layout, the container or the main div will adjust based on the size of the browser window. With an Elastic design in Dreamweaver, at least one of the divs will be set up using the EMS measurement, which will adapt based on the text size in that div. Finally, you'll find a collection of layouts labeled Hybrid. The hybrid designs use some combination of the first three options. For example, the one called two-column hybrid right combines a main column or div that scales to the size of the browser window and a right column or div that changes size based on the text size using ems. To help you better appreciate how all of these work and how you can edit them, let's start by creating one that's a two-column liquid right with a header. As with any other new document in Dreamweaver, I always encourage you to save the file as soon as you create it. So let's just call this CSS test. And let me open this up to the full width in design so we can better see what we're doing. Just going to be experimenting a little. When you're working with a pre-designed layout like this in Dreamweaver, you can select content and delete it, undo and replace just some of the content. So let's for now just put a picture here on the left. And in the Files panel, in your Zuma Beach site, you'll find some images that I've included for you to experiment with in this lesson. So let's drag in shorebirds. And let's put another picture here on the left. And I'll just use alt text, birds in the waves. Now notice right away that this picture doesn't fit in this column, and this is a liquid layout, so it should adjust. Let's save it and let's preview it in a browser. So now I've got a design that if I resize the browser there, will move around based on the width of the browser. And you start to see how, although liquid layouts can be very cool, they also can be a bit problematic if they're not set up for the content you're using. Now, I could play around with this layout and get it to work for this content, but as a general rule, I would suggest that liquid layouts work better when you have text or content that's flexible, and fixed layouts are going to work better when your primary design elements are images that aren't going to adjust based on the width of the window.